If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Subscribing helps the channel grow and ensures you never miss upcoming videos. Give this video a like, share it with others, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. It all happened so suddenly that I didn't even get a chance to realize the fragility of this situation. Policemen armed with automatic weapons suddenly surrounded me. The sub-inspector in charge was staring at me with piercing eyes as if I were a dangerous criminal who had escaped from the law. In those days, clouds of fear and panic were constantly hovering in educational institutions. Ever since political organizations had started the nefarious business of buying and selling male and female students of colleges and universities for their own benefit, the atmosphere there had also become gloomy. Riots had become a daily routine. Students had divided into different organizations and groups for them. Affiliation with political organizations was proving to be very profitable apart from the city. Now the business of burning and processions had also started within the walls of the college, accusing each other, throwing mud, raising vulgar and obscene slogans, and beating and blaming each other for their own benefit had become very common. Then with time, the use of firearms and automatic weapons also started. Bodies started falling day by day. So the intervention of the police and law enforcers also became inevitable. The same thing happened that day. I was sitting in the library, studying, when suddenly there was a commotion and then the sound of gunshots echoed. Since I belonged to the only class that was studying, I was convinced to leave the college premises in case of emergency. So, as soon as I smelled gunpowder in the air, I closed my book and rushed out of the library. Since the noise and intermittent gunshots were coming from the direction of the main entrance, I preferred to leave through the back door. But I had just climbed the stairs of the library and descended when a final year student who was running blindly ran into me with all his might. I knew him. His name was Shobi and he was associated with an organization that was spending money with both hands to come to power at any cost. Shobi was active as the head of this organization in the medical college a month ago. Shobi's name was also among the suspects in the murder of an innocent student. But so far no solid evidence had been found against him that could bind him to the clutches of the law. However, after hitting me the leather bag that was pressed in, Shobi's hand came out and landed at my feet and he went away, playing with his fists. He showed amazing agility in controlling himself, aggressive agility. After standing on the steps, he looked into my eyes and then said in a very brutal tone, "If you want life, keep your mouth shut otherwise." The sound of the police running and whistling was getting closer. So Shobi turned quickly and left through the back door. As he left, he took a farewell look at the leather bag. He didn't want to take the risk of picking it up again. So he thought it necessary to threaten me. As he left, I got up quickly. I also wanted to escape from the scene before the danger came. But I didn't succeed in my intention. The police force came forward and surrounded me. On the orders of a police sub-inspector, a constable searched the leather bag in which, apart from 2 books, a Russian-made .38 pistol, 2 spare magazines, 2 plastic ones, a dagger and a bag with spare rounds were recovered. A cold wave of fear spread through my body. The police sub-inspector was staring at me with angry eyes. The armed soldiers were pointing their rifles at me. / "What is your name?" / the sub-inspector asked in a very dry tone. "Rashid Ahmed." / I replied slowly. / "Whose bag is it?" / "It's not mine. I said hesitantly. / "Then is it your father's?" The sub-inspector's tone suddenly became harsh. He angrily hit his trousers with the willow stick in his hand and glared at me with angry eyes. /19 Your only good thing is to throw everything away with dignity. /. My heart beat faster for a moment. I thought about mentioning Shobi's name to the police and getting rid of the serious situation, but then I gave up my intention. Shobi's sentence started echoing in my mind. I knew that Shobi had the support of very big people. Somehow, they would definitely succeed in saving Shobi from the clutches of the law, and my name would be at the top of their /hit list /. Apart from this, I was also worried that even if I mentioned Shobi's name, the police would not let me go easily. So I took a middle path and said, a boy ran into me and ran away from me through the back. This bag was in his hand. That's right, sir. A constable wanted to support my answer. I saw that the one who escaped. 11. The sub-inspector said in a stern tone. Then on his orders the items in the bag were taken out again, leaving the eyes of the principal and other teachers wide open in surprise. Rashid Ahmed, the principal, addressed me. What am I seeing in all this? I swear, sir, I said in a very regretful voice, trying to assure the principal of my innocence. I have nothing to do with this bag. Then where did it come from to you? Shobi's name kept coming up on my tongue once again. There was a crowd of police and students around me, including some students who belonged to the same organization that Shobi was an official of. If I opened my mouth, I could have been the target of their rebuke. Their long hands could have reached my veins even after they sank to the bottom of the sea. I was badly trapped in the grip of circumstances. It was not appropriate for me to open my mouth. You tell me the name of the owner of the bag. The principal expressed sympathy. I can get you released on my bail. He ran away from me, sir. I made one last attempt. I couldn't see his form. You will remember everything when you reach the police station, the sub-inspector said with a wink. Then he said to Panpal, You don't know, sir, that the education they are receiving in terrorism has made them very bold and hard-hearted. They do not understand the language of love and nobility. Killing and destruction has become a game and spectacle for them. They do not deserve any concessions. Subversive activities have also erased the difference between their appearance and their inner self. Now they have become ghosts of the dead. Words have no effect on them. You keep your mouth shut. The sub-inspector reprimanded the soldier in a stern voice, then stared at me and said, What is the name of the boy you hit and ran away from? I couldn't see his face completely, so I tried to make excuses. Is he a student of this college? Yeah, I can't say for sure. Don't you understand the language of nobility? The sub-inspector's expression began to change. You believe me, sir. Stop talking nonsense. The sub-inspector fell down after hearing my answer. Then, at his signal, 4 policemen, all dressed in uniform, took me in their truncheons and started pushing me towards the main gate. I am telling the truth. I protested, I am a poor student. I do not belong to any organization or party. The dirty and filthy abuses I was given for my answer this time are still fresh in my mind. I had no way of escape. I pressed my lips tightly. Hot gusts of wind were blowing in my mind. They dragged me mercilessly to the police van parked near the main gate. There was a good crowd of onlookers there. The principal of the college and some other teachers were also present. When the principal saw me, he could not help but be shocked. He quickly approached and said to the sub-inspector, This, Rashid Ahmed. He is the most brilliant student of our college. I am well aware of his extracurricular activities. His character has always been spotless. He has not committed any crime. That's your opinion, but we caught him red-handed with evidence, the sub-inspector said in a stern tone. Then on his orders the items in the bag were taken out again, leaving the eyes of the principal and other teachers wide open in surprise. Rashid Ahmed, the principal, addressed me. What am I seeing in all this? I swear, sir, I said in a very regretful voice, trying to assure the principal of my innocence. I have nothing to do with this bag. Then where did it come from to you? Shobi's name kept coming up on my tongue once again. There was a crowd of police and students around me, including some students who belonged to the same organization that Shobi was an official of. If I opened my mouth, I could have been the target of their rebuke. Their long hands could have reached my veins even after they sank to the bottom of the sea. I was badly trapped in the grip of circumstances. It was not appropriate for me to open my mouth. You tell me the name of the owner of the bag. The principal expressed sympathy. I can get you released on my bail. He ran away from me, sir. I made one last attempt. I couldn't see his form. You will remember everything when you reach the police station, the sub-inspector said with a wink. Then he said to Panpal, you don't know, sir, that the education they are receiving in terrorism has made them very bold and hard-hearted. They do not understand the language of love and nobility. Killing and destruction has become a game and spectacle for them. They do not deserve any concessions. Subversive activities have also erased the difference between their appearance and their inner self. Now they have become ghosts of the dead. Words have no effect on them. There was a strange conflict within me. My past was circulating in the depths of my being. I had no other support in this world except my father, who had worked hard to educate me, and who had mortgaged all his savings and sent me to the city to study medicine in the hope that when I achieved success and became a doctor, he would be able to hold his head high with pride. I did not act with any miserliness in fulfilling my father's wish. I worked hard day and night, along with my studies. I also did tutoring to meet my educational expenses. My father's prayers were with me, so nature was also helping me. I was getting first position every year by the grace and mercy of God. Life was moving on its path when suddenly an earthquake struck. Only 2 years were left to complete my education. My destination was approaching. The joys of the future were beginning to flicker within my being. My dreams were about to be realized. All the students and teachers of the medical college looked at me with love. The principal was pleased with my extracurricular activities and achievements, and approved a scholarship for me. I had decided that after becoming a doctor, I would treat the poor, oppressed and the needy free of charge and would not spare any moment in serving and caring for humanity. I would take my old father from the depths of the earth to the heights of the throne for which he had dreamed of a beautiful future by risking all his accumulated wealth. A single stone coming from the opposite direction had shattered our glass Taj Mahal. Its fragments were making me bleed. I stood as a spectacle in the midst of a crowd of living beings like myself. The birds that had seemed so familiar until yesterday seemed so strange and unrelated. I didn't realize the irony of the situation. The darkness had rushed towards me with such lightning speed that even my own shadow had left me. What are you lost in thought, son? There is still time. Tell the truth and you will be saved. Otherwise you will have to go through the process of detention. The cold voice of the sub-inspector hit my ears, shattering my thoughts. He was saying with great kindness, why are you making enemies of your own good skin? Once you are cut off, you will be counted in the list of criminals forever.
I looked at the teachers and then at the crowd. The eyes of the opposing, the organization's boys were fixed on my face. I looked away from them. Time was passing quickly. I tried to provoke myself to tell the truth, but my basic weakness and nobility got in my way. The fear of death began to haunt me. I was weak, so I was afraid of clashing with power. Or was it my cowardice that forced me to keep my mouth shut? If only I'd shown courage at that time, I might not have been wandering in the darkness and obscurity whose painful story I have taken up my pen today to tell. But perhaps this is what the scribe of fate intended. Who can erase the writings of fate? My continued silence brought the law to its knees. The sub-inspector barely controlled himself for a while. Then at his signal, the policemen swung their batons and forcibly pushed me into the vehicle, in which the students were already sitting. I felt suffocated in this crowd. I was not used to this environment, but it was not in my power to escape from it either. Our destination did not prove to be the same. The number of students and suspects was large, so they were divided into separate pens, like mute cattle, in the police station where I was kept. A senior student of mine was also present with me. Since we were not considered regular criminals till then, we were kept in a separate custody, separated from the regular criminals, where 2 armed constables were kept under strict surveillance. They were looking alert. I'm glad you acted wisely, the other student whispered to me after a moment of silence. After mentioning Shahir's name, you're not going to tell anyone. They could have been in big trouble. You? I looked at him intently. My name is Ghaffur Rajput, he replied carelessly. I also belong to the same organization of which Shabir is also a member. What will happen to us now? I asked with a pounding heart. Nothing. He smiled. The police will keep us as guests for a couple of days and then release us with honor. The big people we are related to are not outside their control. The procedures are carried out to show the world. Noah, understand the boat. You have another matter. But that leather bag has also been attached to my name, which has nothing to do with me. I said, chewing my lip. If you want, that bag can be taken out of your account. How is that? I asked in surprise. Join us, he said in a low voice. Our organization also needs talented students like you. Just think. A lifetime of luxury. Do? And what will happen to the firearms recovered from the bag? I explained. Wanted. Don't worry about it. That bag will be handed over to the real culprit. What do you mean? I asked, in shock. Did Shabir confess to his crime after I joined the organization? You misunderstood, Ghaffur, Rajput said quickly. The police have such. There is no shortage of criminals in whose names cases are registered that do not even relate to their angelic nature. And no one protests this rigging. I expressed surprise. What did? Did even the real culprits do not accept such a crime with dignity. They also try to prove themselves innocent by adopting protest tactics. Therefore, now protest has no value in the eyes of the law. The decision is always in favor of the one in whose direction the scales of justice tilt. For this, tools are needed, which our organization has in abundance. I did not reply to his words. At that time, I could not understand the meaning of his words. I was a traveler on the path of truth. I was determined to raise a knowledge of truth. At that time, the heat of life was still in my conscience, so I did not accept Ghaffur Rajput's offer. I was innocent. I had not committed any crime, so I was sure that nature would definitely help me. Ghaffur Rajput smiled strangely after hearing my refusal. Then he did not talk to me further. I also turned my attention elsewhere. Some time passed in silence. Then the same sub-inspector who had taken me into custody came. What is your statement now? He asked in a dry and pointed voice. You still don't remember the name of the bag, man. How can I know his name when I haven't even seen his form? I stood by my previous statement. Consider it one last time. My PSA. He smiled in a market-like manner. Your soft skin will not be able to withstand the drying room treatment of the police. We have countless tried and tested recipes to loosen the tongue. Ari, what do you want me to reveal? I asked helplessly. What you didn't see? The sub-inspector asked meaningfully. Whispered, what do you mean? I was confused by the structure of his sentence. The meaning is very clear, he said in a hoarse voice. You are called Kazim Pasha. You will definitely know. Yes, I was shocked. Yes, he explained to me lovingly. All you have to do is state that the boy who ran away with your bag was none other than Kazim Pasha. This is a complete lie, I said with a pounding heart. You're not even talking, the sub-inspector growled. And even if you've told the truth, they won't believe it. So, do you know that leather bag? Speak slowly. You've forgotten. King, even the wall has ears. He placed his hand on my shoulder and spoke in a low voice. We deliberately gave the person whose name you are trying to hide the opportunity to escape. You listen to us. We will remove the noose from your neck and fit it around Kazim Pasha's neck. You'll get out of the kiss like a piece of cake. I was shocked to hear the sub-inspector's words. Despite knowing the truth about Shabir, he was keen to provide him with legal protection. Why was Kazim Pasha being implicated in a case for crimes he had not committed? What was the purpose of this? And despite being a responsible representative of the law, the police
Why was he so determined to turn truth into lies and lies into truth? Was he forced to support the crimes of an organization even while wearing the uniform of the law? Why? Was he also afraid of death like me? Or had he been sold by someone like a piece of merchandise? Various questions were running through my mind. I opened my eyes in surprise. I kept looking at the torn sub-inspector, who now looked very disgusting in his beautiful and dignified uniform. Then the image of Kazim Pasha emerged in my mind. I knew very well that he was also a representative of an organization, but instead of making politics shine with the power of bullets and guns, he was engaged in jihad for the survival of humanity and the spread of religion. Many times, members of the opposing group had attempted to assassinate him, but each time he had done some good deed. The leaders of the opposing organizations had tried their best to buy him off at exorbitant prices, but he was as steadfast as an iron rock on his principles. He was convinced that death was right, so he never feared death. Kazim Pasha's freedom was proving to be an obstacle in the way of the other organization. There was magic in Kazim Pasha's words. A large number of students attended his meetings and supported him. I listened to the words very carefully. Perhaps that is why the enemies were trying to tarnish his noble image. They wanted to remove him from the path at all costs. The knots in my mind began to unravel. The sub-inspector had certainly sold his loyalties after estimating the strength of the other party, and now he was dreaming of sending Kazim Pasha to the gallows. In the light of my statement, my mind was shocked by this negative thought. A feeling of hatred and contempt for him began to awaken in my eyes. What thoughts are you lost in, my soul? He came close to me and said, "Obey me, and you will benefit greatly." "Sorry, Sub-Inspector," I replied in a decisive tone. "I'm not going to tell anyone. I am not ready to give any written statement against the innocent." 18. Is this your final decision? He glared at me. "I have finished my speech," I said in a sharp voice. "The decision is yours now." My answer shocked him. His eyes lit up with, different from that of a man-eater who was innocent and helpless. He kept looking at me from different angles for a long time. Then he called 2 of his soldiers and said, Treat him with great respect and honor. What happened next was what has always happened on such occasions, which was probably reserved for the purpose of torturing criminals. The methods used on my delicate body parts are beyond description. They were taking pleasure in torturing me. They would start laughing uncontrollably, then their punches. When they burned me with a burning cigarette, then my endurance would give way. I was tortured day and night for a week, then exhausted. False testimonies were given against me. It was attributed to someone who doesn't know when. The esteemed judges and magistrates sitting in the details of my crimes. The witnesses were cross-examined. Necessary documents were examined. All this was a one-sided proceeding. I knew that there was no truth in me. I had kept my mouth shut. I was sentenced to 3 years of rigorous imprisonment for no crime. There is no remedy for these abuses, so I do not want to repeat them. Perhaps this was the reason. Hardships and difficulties. Or let's say that my honor had been taken away. Therefore, I considered it safe to remain silent. I looked at the honorable judge with great gratitude. Perhaps he had not expected such a blunt answer from me. Contempt. His expression was no. Contemplating a way to kill an animal caught in his clutches. Putting the animal in the worst possible situation. Let's go. This person is your guest. Be sure to show him no lack of courtesy. The 2 soldiers took me by the stick to an empty room. The cruel and horrible way in which my honor was violated. They were hurling abuses at me. When I screamed in pain and agony, kicks and slaps would become more intense. I would start tearing my throat and screaming. I fainted and temporarily calmed down. They presented me before the court as a dangerous criminal. My identity was filled with old incidents of murder and destruction. They were lying in the police cold storage. Courtroom listened attentively to they. Reports from the police and various departments were called. The evidence was examined and then I was indicted. I had even refused to hire a lawyer. A single and helpless person against an entire group. So my silence was also considered as important evidence against me, and finally, my painful past is a long one. I was forced to compromise with the circumstances. Why I had become accustomed to enduring of prison and then detention. What could a lone person do against a well-organized and powerful criminal gang? However, on the day I was sentenced, perhaps because his decision had saved me from a series of sorrows, I bowed my head and silently went to suffer the punishment for my uncommitted sins. I hoped that gradually I would get used to everything and get rid of the pain. But 2 months later I had to face a tragedy again. That day I was sitting on the rocky ground behind the iron bars, leaning against the wall, counting my days and nights, when a soldier approached the bars and addressed me in a harsh and hateful voice. Prisoner number 221. I came to see you. I was beginning to doubt my hearing. Who could be coming to see me? I wondered. Then, when I went into the visitor's room and saw the figure of the visitor, my heart sank. It was my old father who had considered me, the unfortunate one, as his support. My kind-hearted father had probably conveyed the news of my ruin to this poor man as well. He stared at me for a long time with his longing eyes, then said in a hoarse voice, "What happened, honey? What have you done? You have wasted all my hard work." 19. I was left reeling at his question. I had much to say in my defense, but now the time had passed. I pursed my lips tightly and gazed with sorrowful eyes at the shaky figure of my old and emaciated father. "Tell me, Shuda, that this is all a lie," he started crying. "You have not committed any crime. You are innocent." I pressed my lips even harder in response. "So why are you quiet, honey? Why don't you answer me?" he asked. He asked while staring at me. Maybe my silence was bothering him. Maybe he was starting to get suspicious of me because of my silence. Here, there are no innocents behind these bars. Only criminals come, I said softly with a cold sigh. What? His mouth dropped open, surprised at what he was saying. Sheeta, are you confessing your crime? Now what would be gained by refusing? I was left in a state of anguish. Then you are dead to me. He took 2 steps back from the Chinese windblown forest like a madman. My answer had dashed his hopes. His dreams had been shattered in an instant. The intensity of grief suddenly affected his mind as well. I did it. He stood at a distance and looked at me like a madman. Then he said contemptuously, "That's not my Sheeta, that's him, he's dead." Ha ha ha, my Sheeta is dead, he's dead. My old father could not bear the shock. He was screaming like a madman. Perhaps his mental balance had deteriorated. I stood behind the bars and watched everything. Then a soldier came forward, grabbed him by the collar, and dragged him out with great cruelty. I could not help him. He silently bowed his head and went back to his cell. A week after this incident, an acquaintance of mine reported that my father had been hit by a car while crossing the road and had become completely indifferent to the turmoil of the world. That day, for the first time, I cried bitterly at my misfortune of bad luck, but there was no one to ask for those tears. To be continued.